Midnight drew near, and with it came the breaking point. The champagne towers were half empty. Laughter grew reckless, and the thin line between entertainment and cruelty vanished. In the Beverly Hills estate, crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors where Hollywood elite and tech billionaires gathered to celebrate excess. Marcus Sterling, the host, raised his glass high above the crowd, his voice booming with practiced arrogance. To success, he declared, to wealth, power, and keeping people in their proper place. The ballroom erupted in cheers as champagne flutes clinked together, creating a symphony of privilege that echoed through halls built on others' labor. Blake Morrison, the young heir, smirked from beside the grand piano, his eyes already scanning for entertainment. Around them, oil executives boasted about worker wages, while socialites draped in diamonds laughed at stories of demanding staff. The night pulsed with dangerous energy as alcohol loosened tongues and dissolved whatever thin veneer of civility remained among America's wealthiest. From the shadows of the grand ballroom, Carlos Rivera moved quietly with his cleaning supplies, invisible to the celebrating elite. At 73, his back bore the weight of decades spent polishing these same marble floors, his hands scarred by 15 years of faithful service to the Sterling estate. His gray uniform, pressed despite its age, carried the dignity of a man who found honor in honest work. While Hollywood moguls and Silicon Valley titans boasted about their empires, Carlos thought of his grandchildren studying for college, their dreams built on his sacrifices. He had heard their cruel jokes about the help, witnessed their dismissive glances, but his heart remained unbroken. Tonight felt different, though. The laughter carried sharper edges, the voices grew more reckless, and Carlos sensed something dangerous building in the air, thick with champagne fumes and unchecked arrogance. He bent slowly to collect abandoned glasses near the piano, his movements careful and deliberate, hoping to remain unnoticed as the wealthy measured their worth by how cruelly they could treat those beneath them. By the bar, clusters of men in tailored suits grew louder with each drink. One oil executive, his belly straining against his jacket, boasted about worker wages with cruel satisfaction. They should be grateful for paychecks at all, he barked, cigar smoke curling upward like a warning. His companion, a socialite draped in diamonds, laughed sharply. My housekeeper asked for time off last month. Can you imagine? In my day, staff knew their place. Across the room, Senator Williams clutched his whiskey, surrounded by donors as he abandoned his public persona. The problem with America isn't policy, he slurred. It's that the help has forgotten to be invisible. The table erupted in applause. Meanwhile, Blake Morrison swaggered between groups, his champagne glass catching the light as he searched for amusement. These people forget their place, he declared to anyone listening. Marcus Sterling moved through his domain like a king, snapping fingers at waiters, his glare cutting down anyone who displeased him. The atmosphere grew poisonous as wealth transformed celebration into cruelty, each laugh sharper than the last. Near the grand piano, Carlos bent slowly to gather glasses abandoned on the marble, his knees trembling with pain but his hands steady. The orchestra's soft notes covered the sound of his rag, wiping quietly along the polished floor. He thought himself unnoticed. He was wrong. From across the ballroom, Marcus Sterling spotted him, flushed with alcohol and pride. The host strode forward, his voice sharp enough to silence nearby conversations. Carlos, Marcus barked, drawing stares from guests. What are you doing here in the middle of my party? This is no place for janitors. The old man straightened, his spine stiff as steel. I apologize, sir, he said quietly. I was only cleaning some glasses. Cleaning? Marcus laughed coldly. Since when do you decide when or where you clean? Your job is not to think. Your job is to obey. Blake Morrison staggered forward with champagne in hand, his grin wide and poisonous. Marcus is right, he said, turning toward Carlos. These people forget their place. He tilted his glass, golden liquid splashing across the floor Carlos had just polished. Oops, looks like you have work to do, Grandpa. Blake sneered as nervous laughter flickered through the crowd. Carlos knelt without a word, pressing his rag against the spill, each movement heavy with humiliation. But Blake wasn't finished. Emboldened by the audience, he tipped the rest of his champagne forward, this time straight onto Carlos's back. The cold liquid soaked through the old man's gray uniform, darkening the fabric. A ripple of cruel laughter erupted through the ballroom. One guest whispered, "This is terrible," but her words drowned under the applause of mockery. As Carlos remained on his knees, cleaning the mess while champagne dripped from his shoulders, his heart turned inward. "Jesus, you know what it is to be mocked," he prayed silently. "You know what it is to be humiliated. They laughed at you too. You bore for us. Please give me your strength now. Help me endure this shame. And if it is your will, open their eyes. Show them that every man, even the least of us, carries dignity given by God himself." The sound came so quietly that at first no one noticed it. The front doors of the Beverly Hills estate, massive oak carved with intricate designs, swung open without a hand touching them. The hinges did not creak. The motion was smooth, like a breeze had carried them wide. At once, several heads turned. It was subtle, instinctive, as if something inside their bones told them to look. Conversations trailed off mid-sentence. A half-raised glass of champagne froze in the air. Through the doorway stepped a figure that seemed to carry light itself. He wore a simple linen tunic and crimson mantle, his presence filling the ballroom with an authority no wealth could purchase. His eyes were kind yet piercing, as if he saw not just faces but souls. The orchestra faltered, their instruments growing quiet. The cruel laughter died in throats. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim in reverence. "No one invited me," the stranger said, his voice carrying across marble and crystal with impossible clarity. "I heard a prayer, and prayers spoken from the heart are always answered." Jesus walked further inside, each step seeming to drain the room of its cruelty, replacing it with something heavier, holier. Those who had laughed the loudest now found their throats dry. Blake Morrison gripped his empty champagne bottle, his hand trembling. Senator Williams pulled at his tie, suddenly suffocated by the fabric. Yet Jesus did not look at them first. He moved toward Carlos, still kneeling, still drenched, rag clutched in his weathered hand. He bent slightly, extended his own hand downward, and said, "Rise, my brother. No man should be on his knees before another man." The words struck like lightning in the silence. Carlos reached up, his old hand trembling as it met the strong, warm grip of Christ. As Jesus pulled him to his feet, a strange strength coursed through the janitor's frail body. His knees, raw from the marble, no longer buckled. His back, bent from decades of work, straightened with ease. For the first time that night, Carlos did not feel old. He felt alive. The crowd watched in stunned silence as dignity was restored to one they had trampled. Jesus turned, scanning the faces of the wealthy and powerful who moments earlier had treated cruelty like sport. His eyes lingered on Blake, on Senator Williams, on Marcus himself. Each man shifted as though standing naked before a truth they had long denied. The ballroom had changed. It was no longer Marcus's domain. It belonged now to someone greater, someone whose very presence dissolved arrogance and demanded every soul reckon with itself. Jesus' gaze stopped on Blake Morrison, the young heir who only moments earlier had poured champagne on Carlos's head. Blake tried to hold his ground, but the weight of those eyes, calm, searching, eternal, was unbearable. His smirk dissolved. The bottle in his hand trembled. "Young man," Jesus said softly, yet his words carried through the entire hall. "You hold an empty bottle, but your hands are more empty than you realize. Tell me, how did it become this way?" Blake swallowed hard. He wanted to lie, to dismiss it as an accident, but something inside him knew he could not. Under that gaze, deception withered. His voice cracked. "I was just joking. A joke." Jesus tilted his head gently. "Was it a joke when your grandmother, Rosa, told you to honor every person you meet? Was it a joke when she taught you that kindness is greater than wealth? The name struck Blake like a blow. His grandmother had been gone for decades. Yet here stood a man speaking of her, as if he had known her yesterday. His lips quivered, but no words came. And for the first time in years, Blake felt the sting of shame. Jesus moved on, his steps deliberate, his eyes now fixed on Senator Williams, the politician whose voice once rallied crowds with promises of justice. Williams tried to look away, but he could not escape. "You speak in public of fairness and dignity," Jesus said, his tone neither harsh nor gentle, but piercing. "And yet in private you mocked a man older than your father. Tell me, Senator Williams, do you remember why you first chose politics?" Williams' throat tightened. In his mind, he saw the young man he once was standing on a college stage, declaring he would fight for the poor, that he would be their voice. He remembered the fire in his chest, the sincerity in his words, and he remembered the moment he traded that fire for comfort, for power, for the easy road of compromise. His lips trembled. "I thought I could make a difference. But the system, it changes you." Jesus' eyes softened, but his reply was firm. "The system did not force your hand tonight. You chose cruelty. You chose silence. The system did not laugh while an old man was humiliated. You did." William's shoulders sagged. For the first time in years, he could not hide behind excuses. Then Jesus turned toward Marcus Sterling, the master of the house. The man who had built empires, who commanded respect with the flick of his wrist, now found himself stripped of all pretense. His Armani suit, his glittering watch, his marble kingdom, none of it could shield him from the question that came next. "Marcus," Jesus said, stepping closer, "you celebrate tonight as though success were measured by wealth. Tell me, what is success to you?" Marcus straightened, clinging to the pride that had fueled him for decades. "Success is power," he said, his voice firm at first. "It's providing for my family, creating jobs, shaping the world to my will. That is success." Jesus nodded slowly, as if weighing the words. Then he asked, "And how has humiliating this man brought you closer to your family? Has it made your daughter in Boston love you more? Has it restored what you lost with her?" Marcus's breath caught. The mention of his daughter pierced through him like a dagger. Sophia, his only child, living far away, refusing to take his calls. He hadn't heard her name in weeks, hadn't faced the truth of her absence. His lips parted, but no sound emerged. Jesus' voice was gentle now, almost tender. "You built towers of glass and steel, Marcus. You bought mansions and poured wealth into your hands. But your own child says she no longer knows you. Tell me, what have you truly gained?" The room was silent. Not one guest dared to move. For the first time, the elite of Beverly Hills stood exposed, their pride unveiled under a light brighter than chandeliers. They were no longer laughing. They were remembering childhood lessons of kindness, promises of justice, families once cherished before ambition consumed them. And standing at the center of it all was Carlos, his soaked uniform clinging to his body, but his eyes shining with something new, that maybe his prayer had been answered. Jesus turned to the crowd one final time. "Tonight you celebrated wealth, power, and status. But what has it given you? Champagne in your glasses, yet emptiness in your hearts. You laughed while man was mocked, forgetting that his worth is no less than yours. True success is not measured by the size of your mansion, but by the depth of your compassion. True wealth is not in your bank accounts, but in how you treat the least of these." The silence was unbearable. The chandeliers still glowed, but they no longer felt like trophies of wealth. They felt like witnesses to judgment. And in that holy quiet, Carlos Rivera, the janitor who had been humiliated, stepped forward. He looked at Marcus, at Blake, at Senator Williams, and spoke words that shattered pride itself. "I forgive you, all of you, because mercy is stronger than money.